I am what you call a trophy wife. Derek only married me so he would have something pretty to hang on his arm at events, and yes, I admit, I liked his money and status, so being an object was my role, then I was going to play it as well as any other Oscar-winning actress would. So we have been married for nearly 3 years, and in that time span I've somehow been made to become domesticated, like an actual housewife. Derek expects certain benefits of having a stay-at-home wife, like sex and cleaning and, worst of all, cooking. He actually wants me, of all people, to get my hands dirty peeling potatoes and loading the dishwasher. I'm married to become a lady of leisure, not a housewife. Although Derek gets very tired these days when he comes home from work, but that's probably due to all the crushed Ambien in his food. I've been drugging him for about 6 months now, and it is quite amusing watching him pass out in his armchair. It must be all the hard work you're putting in, darling, I say to him when he wakes in the morning. I do try to hide the smirk the best I can. I do, however, do it in intervals, so he doesn't become suspicious, bless him. And those nights he's awake, he will often request the other wifely duty, like folding laundry or vacuuming or sex. I'll always choose sex. I'd rather lay down and enjoy myself for 10 minutes than have to wash his underwear. I have a secret maid to do that for me while he's at work. So, you can probably tell that I am not hugely fond of my husband. Do not mistake me. I do think he is a sweetheart, and he's not bad looking for 42 years old, but I'm just not the loving type, and never really have been. Oh, please don't get me wrong. I had a very loving childhood, and wasn't a spoiled child by any means, and I do like Derek. I just don't love him. Some people would refer to me as a psychopath, maybe. But the only thing I could say I do feel love for would be kittens. You could call me a crazy cat lady, except I'd have to have kittens in order for that to be true. I was never allowed one as a child, and I've been practically begging Derek for one since we got married, but he tells me we can't as he is allergic. Allergic? How selfish could one man be? He told me that about 5.5 months ago. And so that's when I started drugging him. Just to keep him quiet and out of my way. And even now, I'm still so very angry with him. When we do have sex, I imagine all the ways I could kill him. And that usually helps me orgasm while he dispenses his seed. week, just before I drugged him, I crushed up some cat hair to put in his food, just to see if he was really allergic, like he said. He did go a little red and had a coughing fit, but that was about it. He is such a liar. We could have gotten a kitten and he would be fine. Nothing a really good vacuum cleaner couldn't solve. Derek, he did always say he loved me enough to do anything for me. So why not this? Why is your health so much more important than my happiness? Oh, dearest, you shouldn't make a promise you can't keep. So, last week, while Derek was away on a business trip, I found an exquisite little pet store downtown. Not my usual area, but sometimes you must make a sacrifice to get the desired result. I walked in and suddenly heard dogs barking and could smell nothing but urine. But as I walked through this back alley stink hole, I saw something towards the back. A cage occupied by the most beautiful gray and white kitten. Female, 12 weeks old. She had a little black spot on the top of her nose, and for the first time I could feel my heart beat faster, and I fell in love there and then. The clerk asked if I needed help, and I simply replied, "I'll take her. Now. Please." The clerk smiled and said, "But miss, there is some paperwork to fill out first, and have you ever had a cat?" I looked at the chubby little man up and down and asked, "How much is she?" He replied, "Well, she is a purebred, so she's around 800, not including all the stuff that you would need." I cut him off there and then. "I will give you 1,500 for the kitten and all her needs, and I will even sweeten the deal by giving you an extra 1,000 if you get all the things she needs, fill out all the paperwork, and get her the best carry case you have." I even threw out my signature fake smile, the one I give Derek when he asked if I had fun after doing my wifely chore. I have never seen a chubby man move so fast after I put that money into his trouser pocket slowly. Within minutes, I had bags of everything my princess would need. She was brought to me in a very comfortable-looking carry case. The chubby guy even took everything into my car and left. And as I left, he called out, "Enjoy your new cat." "Oh, I will," I muttered. I drove my little princess home as fast as I could. Oh, and by the way, her name isn't Princess, funnily enough. I only had one name in mind that I thought since childhood. So, my gorgeous little girl was named Cupcake. I got her home and to the front door and let myself in, only to find Derek was home, sat in his armchair reading the paper. He began to stand up and started to say, I wanted to What is that, Jennifer? I gave him my fake smile and replied, Surprise! I got us a kitten, our own little fur baby. Oh, no, Jen. You know I'm allergic to cats. We've discussed this many times before. You take her back from wherever you got her. I could actually feel tears crowning my eyes. I will not take Cupcake back anywhere. She is mine, and I will not get rid of her. He rolled his eyes at me, then sneezed. Jesus Christ, Jennifer, you already named it? I am very, very allergic to cats, Jennifer, and I will not have one in this house. Not now, not ever. A single tear rolled down my cheek, clutching the carrier with Cupcake inside, making small meows, which I couldn't even enjoy, as I was far too furious. Well, Derek, I composed myself. I can't take her anywhere, as the pet store will be closed now. Derek sneezed again and sniffled. Jennifer, I don't give a fuck, and don't fuck with me on this. I am being serious. Take her to a shelter or throw her in the garden. She will be fine. With my blood boiling inside, I calmly said, I am not taking her to a shelter. And if you think I am going to put this beautiful creature in the garden, then you are sadly mistaken. He shook his head while his face began to go a lighter shade of red. Jennifer, it's either me or the cat. End of story. Then he stormed upstairs. I looked down at my beautiful girl with her big blue eyes staring back at me. Well then, husband, it looks like you have to go then, I whispered up the stairs. I spent most of the night playing with Cupcake in the den and getting to know her amazing personality, and fell more and more in love with her as she tried to paw at her new mouse toy. Derek only came downstairs once to pick up his beloved bottle of scotch and a glass of crystal to put it in, and went back upstairs. Luckily, I had already laced the bottle with his usual drug crushed into it, but I may have given it an extra dose or two, already expecting his reaction to my baby girl. Within the hour, I could hear his sniffled snores, and I knew I had to protect my baby. It was now or never. Now, whenever we would have sex, I would spend my time imagining ways to kill Derek. I guess it was just a fun quirk of mine, and deep down I knew it would come to this after he told me we couldn't get a kitten. But now it was a reality. And I began to go through all my methods, like strangling him while he was asleep, or give him a huge overdose of sleeping pills, or even run him over with the Bentley. But none of these would do. They didn't seem to be satisfying enough for my hatred towards him now. I used to want to be as, quote, gentle as possible, but now I wanted the pain and the blood to flow. Cupcake circled my leg, rubbing against my skin with her soft fur, and meowed quietly. And that's when it hit me. I know the perfect way, I told myself, and so I began to prepare my equipment and myself for what was going to be a great ending to a great day. I am a trophy wife, but that never meant I was not a psychopath, and a narcissistic one at that. You should never come between a woman and the one thing she loves. I slowly walked upstairs and found Derek asleep on the bed that we shared. He didn't even have the decency to pass out in one of the guest rooms, like a man should. And I did feel quite annoyed that he was going to get all of his blood all over my lovely satin sheets. But what is a girl to do? I dragged him to the vintage wooden chair we kept in the corner. Yet another sacrifice I must make. But I did put plastic on the floor under the chair. I had brought Cupcake upstairs with me and placed her on the bed to get comfortable for the show. And as it was indeed all for her, after all. I managed to pick Derek up and sit him on the chair. It really is amazing the strength you can gather when fighting for a loved one. Ugh. Anyway, I tied Derek up to the chair using some rope I found in the garage. I made sure he was tightly secured before attempting to bring him to consciousness. Luckily, as a woman with connections, how else do you think I had so many sleeping pills? I may be a trophy wife, but we all have a past, don't we? I still had the nasal spray called Narcan, which reverses the effects of sleeping medication and will wake the subject up instantly. So I shoved it up each nostril and sprayed it. Derek rose up from his slumber and instantly realized he was tied up and unable to move. He even screamed my name in panic and, "Help!" until I walked around from behind him. At first he looked relieved, then quickly had the realization that we weren't both being robbed and that I had actually done this to him. Jen, what's happening? Why am I tied up like this? Straight after saying this, he sneezed and saw Cupcake on the bed, curled up near my pillow. Jen, what the fuck are you doing? I tilted my head slightly to the side, and then I bent down in front of him and put my hands on his knee. I sighed. You told me it was either you or the kitten. And I'm sorry to have to tell you that I chose her. His face began to go red again, and he scrunched up his mouth and then shouted, "Are you fucking crazy? Bitch, you're gonna pick a cat over your own husband? What the fuck is wrong with you?" I frowned and stood up, looking down on him. You see, my darling, I love Cupcake. And I don't love you, and never have. Oh, but please don't get me wrong. I did like you, and that's why I married you, and have put up with you trying to turn me into some kind of Stepford wife for nearly 3 years. Do I look like the kind of woman who is going to iron your shirts and make sure dinner is ready for you? I pretended to do that filthy work because I enjoyed being in the higher class. But you try to deny my only request, my one dream, and you don't think I was going to retaliate? I look after my babies. He seriously looked almost heartbroken for a moment, and then seemed confused. Your babies? You only got one cat. I smiled. Oh, yes, my other kitten babies. They all live in my private apartment. I visit them every day, and Cupcake is joining my other babies. You see, my sweet Derek, you really should do your research when looking for a sugar baby. I'm sorry to have to tell you that you are not my first husband, nor the first man to tell me to choose, and certainly not my first kill. I do have a terrible habit of choosing men who hate cats, but they all love cats by the end. He looked in horror at me, seeing the seriousness in my face. You crazy fucking bitch! Derek, I said, I'm going to help you, my husband. Don't you worry. By the time I'm finished with you, you will be good with cats. Derek sneezed. See, now you have not stopped sneezing since I brought our little kitten home. So, I'm going to fix that, I said as I pulled out the kitchen scissors from behind my back, and with a swift slice, I cut the tip of his nose off onto the plastic. "Oh my fucking God!" Derek screamed. Granted, it's not the greatest look, but it will help you to not sneeze. Then, with another quick motion, I cut off both of his ears. "And now you won't complain about her meowing, will you?" He started to cry while blood began to run over his lips and down the sides of his face. I then pulled each one of his lips out, and regardless of his squirming, I managed to slice each and every one off. At this point, I concluded that it was pointless trying to have a conversation with him, as all Derek was doing now was spitting blood and moaning, and just at that moment, Cupcake woke up and headed towards me. She sat on the end of the bed, watching. Derek's eyes were watering. Granted, I didn't know whether they were from tears or tears of crying or from his allergies. But still, I had to continue to help him. So I slowly, well, I say slowly, moderately, jammed two of our finest ice picks into his right eye, twisted them, and then I pulled, and each eye popped out like a cherry being picked. His head slumped back, but I've done this enough to know not to hit the brain and kill them before I finished. So, after pulling the eye off of one of the ice picks, I stuck the other ice pick into his left eye and pulled it out with a little bit more ease. Derek could finally stop struggling with his head. I then pulled that eye out with the ice pick and threw it behind me. Unfortunately, it landed on the bed and stained the satin sheets. But Cupcake seemed very interested in the eye. I was beginning to get a headache listening to all the gargling and moaning coming from Derek. So now it was time to teach him the lesson that he needed to know, which I told him. If you can't open up your heart to love a kitten, then you don't deserve to have a heart at all. I then closed the scissors and cut open his chest. I cut a square out of his skin and flesh while blood oozed, and slowly began to carve away. By the time I was done, I could see the chest cavity. I shut the scissors and stuck the pair in and pushed them as hard as I could into his heart. I fished around a little. I used other equipment like pliers and other medical tools I have acquired over the years to cut the ribs and sew. I fished around a little, then managed to pull his heart out. And he finally stopped making those annoying noises, and it was all quiet. I used a wet wipe to clean my hands. I threw the heart down on the floor. I then went downstairs, and I got myself a nice glass of Merlot, then came back upstairs. I went back into the bedroom and took a sip of my wine. I leaned against the door frame and looked at my kitten lovingly while she bit down on my husband's severed eye. It's so adorable when they play with their new toys. And as I've said many times before, I am a trophy wife, and I play the part excellently. I just forgot to mention that I give the trophies to my beautiful kitten babies. Guys, thank you so much for listening. This was a story that was written and narrated by myself, my fallen angel. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. You know the score, you know my Twitter. Give me a subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'd appreciate a like. I'll see you in the next creepy story. Bye, guys.